Welcome to Something to Say, where we bring voices from diverse backgrounds who will share their unique stories and perspectives on finding their passion and provide insights on how you can find yours. Join us as host Greg DeShields guides us through this enlightening journey.
Welcome to Something to Say podcast, a unique platform that amplifies the voices of individuals from various backgrounds sharing their passion. I'm your host, Greg DeShields, and I am pleased to bring you another episode. Thank you for joining us as we welcome Dave Girgenti, an award-winning creative leader and brand strategist with more than 25 years of experience building and scaling brands across the advertising, gaming, hospitality, and philanthropic sectors. Known for his obsessive passion for branding, Dave has led teams through the development of thousands of projects, created nationally recognized philanthropic movements, and raised millions in investment and charitable donations through strategic brand building. In 2009, Dave took a bold entrepreneurial turn and founded heronetwork, the first social helping platform and business crowdfunding site in the United States, which grew into a community of over 500,000 users. He raised $2.4 million in venture capital, managed UI UX design, developed growth strategies, and became deeply immersed in digital marketing and investment relations. He also founded the wishuponahero Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit that raised over 1.5 million and supported over 200,000 individuals through cause-based campaigns and a national volunteer network. Since 2018, Dave has served as Chief Creative Officer for Magnum, a full-service agency based in Collingwood, New Jersey. In addition to leading creative direction and strategy for clients in gaming, entertainment, and hospitality industries, Dave also plays a key role in new business development, helping to expand the agency's client roster and drive growth. Dave's accolades include over 60 creative awards, publication in 5 design books, and recognition as ABC News Person of the Week, a guest on The Steve Harvey Show, and an honoree at the Chase American Giving Awards. He holds an ABA in advertising and design from Rowan University and continues to inspire audiences as a public speaker, mentor, and creative innovator. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Dave. I am so excited that we finally have an opportunity to have you as a guest here on Something to Say. And it's interesting for me because the ability for us to reach out and get really interesting stories is a real priority. And I'm sure for you, it'll be a very interesting conversation. So I'm anxious to begin our conversation diving into all the different things that you've been involved with, both past, present, and future. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I always like talking about myself. So,
So, as a full disclaimer to our audience, Dave is actually my neighbor on 4 Old Salem Road, and he does have an exciting project associated with that we'll discuss during the course of the interview. But for right now, we'll spend some time getting to know Dave, and then we'll dive into some of the more intricate conversations. So, are you up to a few get to know you questions?
fire away. What are they?
So, the first one is, what is your favorite childhood memory?
You know what? That's a good question because you would think like my parents took me across the country when I was younger. I saw like the Grand Canyon, but those aren't the type of memories as a kid that you remember. I think my favorite childhood memories are the ones where like when it snowed, that was always like magical. Not only you got off school, but all your friends came out, and we would set up like we had a red block that used to make like it was called I think the igloo block or something like that.
Okay.
We would build forts and just have snowball fights in the backyard. So those are the memories I remember as a kid.
Well, most people we've had in conversation has some kind of connection to what they do today compared to some experience they had. And given how efficient you are at removing snow from in front of your house. That was really
See, it's a full circle.
connected to that. All right. So, what was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
When you go through my background, I had a company called Wishuponahero, and that was a wish granting thing, and it blew up pretty quickly. The news was very interested in all, and we actually had at one point a company called Reeve Ghosh. They make TV shows. Reached out to me and said we want to make a TV show that kind of follows a little bit like Extreme Home Makeover and that sort of thing, where people got helped out. And I was all excited. I was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna have a TV show that's going to be on, following Extreme Home Makeover." And a couple of the board members that were working with me said, no, 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 because we won't own the end content. It's all about that. And they had me break the deal. And I always see that as a failure on two things. First of all, for the company itself, it could have probably moved forward and we would have had a massive amount of exposure to a new audience. So I think that. But the real failure, I think, was with me not thinking, like my gut was like, no, this is good. But I listened to other people. And
Hmm.
ever since then, I kind of said, what's my heart and my gut say about how to move forward? So I feel like that was a big failure for me. But it was a learning experience when you fail.
Yeah, but in those kind of circumstances, it does help to give you a better guiding light as you move forward and make certain decisions about how you want to proceed or how much input is enough input. Because
Yeah.
often there's a little bit too much that might derail a great idea. So I'm glad to learn that there was something that you were able to come out of it and apply to what you do now. All
Yeah.
right, so this next question is one of our favorite questions, and it's always very interesting. So, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be and why?
Yeah. I'm glad you sent me that one ahead of time, and I'm glad because you start rattling through like so many famous people and like, oh, this and that. But you know anything about me, my core being is about creativity, right? And I'm always, I work at an ad agency. I make TV spots, and as you will discuss, I mean, not only do I create Wish Upon a Hero to help people, a technology platform, or I'm writing a movie or a children's book or whatever. I'm always creating stuff. So if I had to pick anybody, I think I would go back and have like dinner with Leonardo da Vinci because
Mm.
like I feel like he would appreciate or I appreciate what he's done and because he was not only like a painter and a sculptor but he would the human anatomy he would like kind of etch out and he would invent stuff like the helicopter and things like that like he's got invention he's a renaissance man right one of everything and I always think along those lines so I would love to sit down and pick his brain and see how he thinks.
So that's interesting because he's never made our top list, but I can
Oh
imagine
yeah, okay.
for someone like you, he's a great match. So
Yeah.
our follow-up question for most people is if you did have dinner with him, like what would you serve?
Yeah, yeah, right. What do you eat? You know what? I mean, I'm Italian, he's Italian, and we're probably having pasta. I gotta be honest. Probably not gonna venture too far off, but yeah.
I've had some interesting combinations. There are a couple of people who had all of these individuals who were from different decades, and it was just this mishmash of all of these different people. And the interesting thing about that party that they had described is that there'd be no one way to make it work because you'd have some people from the 60s, from the 50s, from the 40s, and so
Yeah,
forth.
I know.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a language barrier too. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't speak fluent Italian, so there could be. It's like, how'd your dinner go? And like, I guess it went okay.
Well, you would have to at least add some kind of artistic component. Let him draw
Yeah,
pictures for things that maybe he
yeah,
doesn't understand, but
exactly.
you could do it for
I
him.
we probably work on a project, if anything. So.
Wow. So I think for the benefit of our audience, I want to go a little bit deeper so to get to know you. So another great follow-up question we have is how big is your inner circle?
Yeah. You know what? That inner circle fluxes over periods of time, right? And your inner circle, maybe when you're younger, it seems bigger because you want everybody to be your friend. And as you get a little older, sometimes you're like, let me pare this down.
Mm.
And I noticed over the last few years, my inner circle has been growing. I play poker every weekend with a group of guys,
Mm.
right? And they weren't like childhood friends or anything, but I'm extremely close with them, and I realized, I can count on these guys for anything. And so you got different groups of inner circles, and sometimes they overlap a little bit here and there. But I have about like 10 people
Hmm.
that I could like, really lean on. Before it used to be about like four people, but it keeps on growing a little bit, and which I find slightly unusual because I figured my inner circle as I got older would get really small
Yeah,
until it was just
smaller.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I've,
it's going the other way.
I've talked to some people, and their inner circle definitely gets smaller as they get older. I actually interviewed a gentleman who was in his late 80s, early 90s, and he was
Mhm.
pretty clear about how small his inner circle is. So he said his daughter and his granddaughter, and that's
Yeah,
pretty,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I thought was pretty funny. But the other thing that some people have described it as their front row, which I kind of like that terminology. It's that group that can always get, direct access to you and
Yeah.
hopefully share the good, the bad, and the ugly in a way that serves to be of your benefit. So,
Yeah, yeah. I always said, I got married a long time ago. I said if I ever got remarried, I would have like these guys are in my inner circle, like because I see them every weekend. We were
right.
super close. When you play poker with somebody, you sit down with 4 or 5 hours. It's a friendly game, but you just get to know them and everything about them. You just become extremely tight, and they're all in business as well. So like I said, it's you become yeah you start interesting businesses with these people.
Well, interestingly enough, we've been playing bocce over at the Cherry Hill Park, and that's
Mm,
become like a little bit of an inner circle, but they're all retirees, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I am
It-
learning new techniques, but it's interesting how that became a bit of a new inner circle with a
yeah, I know these inner circles just pop up sometimes. You're going, all right, didn't think that would happen.
interesting. All right, so who has been the most influential person in your life?
I think there's two periods in my life where there's somebody who's always super influential. Up until like 18, it was my mom, right? The reason I talk about Leonardo da Vinci and advertising and things like that. I'm a creative guy.
Hmm.
The reason I'm a creative guy is because when you have ADHD as a kid and you have dyslexia, it's very hard to read and write. And there's math is not my strong suit, but creativity and art, so you lean into it. My mom was like a huge champion of that. Like she always I always felt dumb and she always made me feel undumb. It's like I always felt like Forrest Gump, but instead of running, I was an artist instead, type of feel. But after I got married and everything, my wife has filled in that role. Always super supportive of everything I do, always there, the nicest, kindest person. Yeah, I mean, you've met her before too. So it's probably she's not on the show for being so nice. So
Well,
yeah,
at some point in time, I want to interview her and talk about school and students and
yeah, that's right. She's a
all that,
kindergarten teacher now, so yeah.
all that kind of interesting stuff.
Yeah, but I would say my mom for the first 18 years and everything after is Colleen has been my support.
Wow,
Yeah.
cool. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of a different twist because I did ask you the question, what was your biggest failure and what did you
Yeah.
learn from it? But a bit of a different perspective of that question is when was the best year of your life and when was the worst year of your life?
Yeah, best and worst. It's weird because you think when you're younger that it would be better, right? But when I was it was probably about 90, I think it's 94-ish, right? I was probably like 23. And that was actually my worst year of my life, which sounds like how the hell would that be? And I just got a new car again. Oh, it's good, but I got hit by a drunk driver that year. And so nothing serious, but it ruined my car and I had the car for maybe like 6 months. And so like I was kind of like pissed off at the world a little bit because I'm like you save up, you work hard to save up to buy a new car, and then someone out of the blue hits you and ruins what you worked for. And
Mhm.
that same year, two of my friends also got cancer, leukemia, and like bone cancer, right? And what my best friend, his mom died. I was very down on like my when I say it's my worst year, but psychologically,
Mhm.
I was like not in a good place. I just was like, the world stinks. I hate
Mhm.
it. And then, like around when I was like 37, it was 2009. I started Wish Upon a Hero, right, to help out people. It was a social helping network, a
Mhm.
platform online that people could post up their needs and anyone could grant those needs. And I did it because I thought the idea was fun. Again, I was just creating stuff. And that took off. The news was always calling me saying, "Hey, are you granting any wishes?" I got on the Steve Harvey show. I was the commencement speaker over at Rowan University. I had all these amazing things happen because I just wanted to see people helping each other. And so that was an exciting thing to create something and have so many people not only get help, but like what your creation does. That was the 2009 was my best year, definitely.
Wow. Those two individual years have such a dramatic impact as you go forward because it can give you that feeling of what the worst could feel like, and then what the highs are, so that everything in the middle is
Yeah.
so richer, when you have an opportunity to experience it, kind of balance it between those two.
As you get older, you realize that failure is always a good thing. You don't want to fail, but when you do, it makes you appreciate the good times more. And also, you got to get used to failure. It's the problem. You can't just collapse.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not always straight and forward for everyone.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question. It's not in the script, but I think in the beginning we kind of had a disclaimer that I could throw just about any question.
Go fire away. Yeah.
So, in this creative marketing environment that you have a great deal of expertise in,
Yeah.
what are your opinion about the integration of technology and artificial intelligence? Is it making things worse? Is it making us smarter, better? What are some of the views that you have?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I'm a technology person. I like to be at the forefront. I'm usually a first adapter of things like that. Something new comes out, I want to know how it works, right? And when AI came out originally, I was like, I go, I couldn't wrap my head around. I'm like, how's this going to do? Okay, maybe it could do some task and all, but it's not going to impact advertising and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you realize how smart it is and what it can do. And then you go into a little bit of a fear, like, can this take me over? And on some aspects, it can, right? For instance, like copywriters, right? We used to have a copywriter here, but with AI, you could just say, "Hey, come up with a promotional name for 4th of July," right? And it'll give you 15 names. You could keep on saying, "Give me another 15." It'll just keep on producing it, or write a 30-second TV spot, and it'll say, "Sure, here you go." It makes images. I mean, it's pretty powerful stuff. And then you start to go, I went from thinking, "Oh, it can't replace me," to thinking, "Can it replace me?" And then I started thinking, "Oh my God, maybe the whole ad industry may collapse from this." But over the last, I think, 6 months of seeing it, even though it's getting smarter, what it can't do, it can't replace true creativity. It can only copy what's been out there before and maybe regurgitate it to some sense. I mean, it can make the world's most perfect paragraph, but to think of a truly creative idea, I just don't think it has it. It doesn't have that human element. I mean, I think of some pretty crazy ideas when I'm trying to think of some TV spots. And AI probably wouldn't even allow its ability to go that direction.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting you say it. I mean, from the experiences I've had prior to I think it was somewhat cumbersome working, I don't want to say with humans, but working with marketing departments and
yeah,
how you had a protocol that you had to follow. And I think the unique thing about AI, it gives you at least the ability to get an idea developed, and then the ability to kind of narrow it down with kind of, various commands in order to get it to exactly what you want, but still in a much shorter time frame than it would have taken before.
right.
And then, like, at the end of the day, how close does it have to be, to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
your message across?
Well, my thoughts are that it's just the next iteration of a tool, right? It's the new hammer, right? And it just depends on how you use it. And I always give the example, because the ad agency I run, Magnum Marketing, we have about 8 to 10 designers here. And before, if you had a photo and you had someone in the background making a funny face, or you went to get rid of that person, we would go and Photoshop it out, we would say, and you get in there and you find and clone stuff. And, if it took you like a half an hour, 45 minutes, it was like, boom. And you go, great, that looks great. And we have a photo. With AI, it's been integrated already into the Adobe products. You
Mhm.
just circle the person and hit remove, and then boom, they're out in under, I don't know, like 7, 8 seconds, it goes through. And so, you know, they still need people to do the work kind of to it and to let know what it is. But 45 minutes now is now 8 seconds, so if I had 1,000 photos, I could do them much quicker than before. So I just need less designers now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And it also hopefully gives you the ability to do more work because you're not focused on doing some of the things that were just a lot more time consuming
yeah,
and
that's exactly right.
function at a higher level, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I want to get into a conversation about some of these incredible projects that you've been involved with. And Wish Upon a Hero is certainly one that stands out. So I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of learn from you, like, how did that actually get started and how were you able to make it grow? And then I guess for everyone in the audience, what were some of the incredible wishes that you delivered?
Yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, prior to this, because I think you reached out because you knew I had the movie, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But did you even know I ran Wish Upon a Hero?
I
Or
did, and the reason
okay,
why was I was at Temple University and I was the associate director of corporate relations, and we had students who were in our sport management track, and they wound up doing their internship with you. So I
oh
did
right,
know
yeah,
about
okay,
that.
yeah.
But I think we had two students who did it, which was a great
Yeah, we
experience.
had a lot of interns come through. But
Right.
the quick background on this was
Oh, wait a minute. I have to also say you had an incredible Hummer that every day it would pass my
yeah, 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 that's right. That's right. You would that right. That was that's right. I had a Hummer wrap and it said Wish Upon a Hero. Again, I'm a marketing guy. I
marketing.
get my message out there big, very big. So, but the background on Wish Upon a Hero, what happened was right after September 11th, right? New York City, I'm in South Jersey, living at the house I'm at now. And I said, I want to go up there and help, right? But I was joking. I said, no one's ever said, is there a designer in the house when there's emergency, right? Like, well, what would I do? And right, that was the time I started thinking about all the missing people. They just were taking, if you look at the old photos, the way they would find something, they would print out someone's photo and stick it on the fence. And they would say, call this number or try to track them down that way. And that seemed very archaic. And I wanted to figure out a better way of finding people and putting them together. Technology wasn't there. And then when Hurricane Katrina hit right around 2006-ish, right? Those people needed more than just finding people. They needed things like food, water, shelter, and it was a bigger need, right?
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, I wonder if there's a system where someone could post up what they want and someone else on the planet can grant that need, basically. And so I called it social helping. They call it crowdfunding now.
Mhm.
And the real difference between like a GoFundMe and what we had is GoFundMe is just financial back and right. Whereas Wish Upon a Hero, it could be anyone. And that's why some of the wishes were really kind of fun and unique, But like if we had a family in Cherry Hill who had a house fire, and they said we can't afford to send their daughter to the prom. Kids couldn't afford the dress and the tickets and all, and show up and be like, oh, good. And I put the message out to the Wish Upon a Hero folks and online, and people would say, oh, well, either I'll buy the tickets, I'll get the tux, I'll buy this, and people would just jump in and help out. So it could be anything. I mean, and sometimes it was simple stuff where it's like I'm a single mom and I can't afford a baby car seat, and people was like, oh my God, my kids just grew out of ours. You could have it. I don't even know what I was going to do with it, and they would just ship it off and send it. And that's really what it was. It was a GoFundMe not only for cash but for items as well.
So can you put into context, like, what was the search engine that was most popular at that time? Because I'm assuming back then a lot of what is probably fueling GoFundMe pages, that technology wasn't even in place. So what was some of the technology, online technology that you were?
Yeah, you know what? There was no mobile apps and stuff. This is about 2007. It was right when Facebook was taking off. The economy was collapsing in 2008, as you well know. And so I think it was just a combination of right place, right time. And GoFundMe wasn't invented yet either. They came out like in 2008 or the year after. And then there was a lot of crowdfunding platforms. Crowdfunding became very big back then. But we were kind of a little bit, I keep on saying, I think I might be the father of crowdfunding. I just called it social help. I don't know, give myself a title. And yeah, I mean, so we took off I was on the Steve Harvey show, because we granted a wish. This woman had all her teeth kind of messed up and all, and she asked for a new smile. And so we had like a dentist come on and say, oh, a periodontist, and redo all her teeth and everything. She was on the Steve Harvey show. And I was on the American Giving Awards, where we won $250,000. It was like a charity event, national TV, met a bunch of celebrities, and things like that. And yeah, there was a lot of great wishes that we did. I mean, and it was from sending little kids to like Disney World and things like that, and to sending. He was a World War II veteran that he went to go back to Pearl Harbor, and he never did it when he was younger. He was turning 90, and we sent him back to Pearl Harbor. Like we raised money for the tickets. You would just reach out to the hotels there and saying, "Here's what we're trying to grant," and they say, "Oh my God, we'd love to be a part of this." And so
Wow.
it was a neat little thing. Yeah.
Was there ever any collaboration with some of the other organizations that may have been doing it for medical reasons or maybe supporting veterans? Was there a collaboration with other organizations that were
Yeah,
doing
we partnered with a few of them. We like some of the big organizations wouldn't partner with us, like the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
it? Mhm.
They're like, we do our own thing. We don't need anybody else. We got Disney backing us. It was like, okay, a lot of the smaller ones, we would partner with them, and if they had something, we would raise money or hold
Mhm.
events for them as well. And I mean, because it was so wide ranging, it wasn't a specific need or niche at
Right.
all. It was for any age, anywhere. I mean, I remember because we made the New Zealand newspaper one time, and I was like, "What?" And somebody in New Zealand granted a wish, and they ended up in the newspaper. They sent me the article. I was like, "I didn't even know we were granting wishes in New Zealand because it was just online." So it was the Wild West. Facebook was just blowing up. Instagram was barely coming online, so it was interesting. Yeah.
So, last question before we move on and talk about Magnum. So, I'm kind of like a car buff kind of guy. So, where did your Hummer go? I mean, is it in
Yeah.
some car museum somewhere or what?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was the Hummer got by the way, I wish I put up on there. I say I wish I had a Hummer is what I put up on the thing, and it got donated. So that's how I got the
Wow.
Hummer. And then, matter of fact, the car wrap you sold, it's the Wish Upon a Hero. I said I wish somebody would, you know, give me a car wrap. And a company, it was like 360 wraps or something like that down in Texas. So I drove down to Texas. I took my dad with me, and we waited and got the car wrapped, and
Mhm.
that's the wrap you see. And then we switched after we got some funding. It wasn't a charity; it was a business.
Right,
Wish Upon a Hero, and because it was basically GoFundMe. It
right.
did good, but it was a business.
Mhm.
We raised some money, and it turned into the Hero Network. So the vehicle got rewrapped orange and black, and had the little it had a cape on the back of the
Right.
car. So I played it up. We always had
Hmm.
orange capes every time we went somewhere.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the work that you do as a creative officer at Magnum. And I didn't realize it was in Collingswood. So,
Yeah, yeah. We know
yeah.
what we used to be in Center City, for
Right.
about 13 years.
Mhm.
And then after the pandemic hit and it was hard to get in there, and it was just difficult to get around, those years. We said, the owner lives in Haddonfield, I live in Cherry Hill, and we were just like, let's maybe this business should be over here. And we found the building. Matter of fact, that's where I'm at now, and
Wow.
and we fixed it all up, and this has been home for the last 5, 6 years now.
Wow. It's such a
Yeah.
great choice of places to meet for lunch in Collingswood. So,
Oh yeah, it's fantastic here. Yeah.
all right. So, who is your client base, and what are some of the services that you provide?
Yeah, Magnum has national clients across the country. 80% of what we do is in the casino market. So a lot of times people always see me posting up on Facebook or Instagram. I'm in another casino, and they think I have a gambling problem when really I'm just doing my job. So yeah, I go out there, and what we do is we're full service. So we do everything from print and digital ads. I write TV spots, I write radio spots, do all the signage, all billboard. So it really is one of everything. Matter of fact, today we're wrapping a gasoline truck, with graphics on both sides. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's little digital ads, and sometimes it's a semi truck. So it's one of everything.
What are some of the more bizarre things that people will ask you to assist, with the kind of marketing work that you do?
Oh yeah. Well, the casinos are fun because, a lot of times they have promotions and things. And like, for instance, SLS used to be in Vegas. They were a casino, and they always had themed like little like chimpanzees and stuff is on their logo and all.
Mhm.
And when I was doing it, like, they needed to do a TV spot. And I was like, oh my God, it's been my dream to work with like a chimpanzee. And I was going to give him a little top hat and he would gamble at the casino. Like, so, like, like it allows, again, I don't think AI wouldn't think of this type of stuff. It'd
Right.
be like, what do you want to do? It's like, and so, but yeah, there's, and some of them have bowling alleys in there. So it's a different thing. And, the casinos are little mini cities. Not only is there gambling, but there's a hotel, there's spas a lot of time, there's entertainers. I work with Barry Manilow, right, and do his graphics, out his billboards and stuff in Vegas, So it's there's golf courses, and they're really fun because it's so wide ranging. They're open 24/7. They celebrate every holiday. I mean, even tax day. They're like, oh, the tax day giveaway. It's always something. So it's really, you never know what they're going to say. And so sometimes it's wild stuff, but you would never know. We just go, oh, okay, let's work on something for you.
Yeah. Well, one thing that would be great if we ever can return to that luster of Atlantic City opening up casinos in the regular frequency that they did to really kind of challenge the creativity. Although I have to say, we've gone down a couple times and Ocean continues to impress me.
Yeah, it's a great casino.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maintained a lot of its integrity as like a cutting edge place. Although some of the others probably need a bit of that infusion of so,
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's the thing. It's like each casino has its own personality,
right.
And as a marketing people, we try to say, okay, what is this about? Because a lot of times when I say casino, people think, oh, high heels and makeup, and it's Vegas.
Yeah.
We have a lot of casinos out in like Oklahoma and in Kansas City, Kansas, right? Where there are inner city casinos too, or in the middle of nowhere casinos, and it's like a bunch of farmers going, they play after work type
Right.
of thing. I mean, so it's not all glitz and glam. It's sometimes it's a place to hang out. It's like the Cheers bar for some people.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. So at some point in time, I need to come by and look at some of the drafts of projects that you've been working
Yeah.
on. So, cool. But we should talk about the movie.
The
Uh,
movie, absolutely.
Dog on Old Salem Road, especially since we both live on Old Salem Road.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, it was funny because you'd reached out and had told me about your work on this project. What is now actually 5 years ago, which is
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah.
now you have moved past the first script and you're moving towards a movie production. So let's talk about this project. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
exciting. And I will tell you, we're going to add the trailer when we launch
Oh,
your
good. Yeah,
podcast.
good. Yeah, that's
With the
great.
segue, this is where it'll go right to the clip.
Yeah. Well, let me get everybody up to speed, right? Because it's kind of a strange story, right? We were living in a house, a couple houses down from you, and I would find like a chewed up, you're working out in the yard, and I would find like a chewed up tennis ball, and I'm like, that's unusual. And I'd throw it away and didn't think much about it, type of thing, right? And then what would happen is like a week later, I would find this like a similar looking chewed up tennis ball, but in the same spot, and I was like, possible. And then for about like 6 months, I kept on coming home and finding tennis balls. And I started, I had an old rickety wood gate before I got that white one that you see now. And I could barely open it. I'm thinking, how do they get in the backyard? Like, where's this? And my wife would always try to be like, well, maybe it's the kids playing tennis, but we didn't have any kids. And besides, it was a chewed up tennis ball.
Mhm.
And right now we have a neighbor in between us who has a big dog. As a matter of fact, if I found the balls, I probably would just back then I probably would say, to Renee and I was like, hey, what's going on? Keep your dog in your yard. I would just assume it was them. But prior to that, we didn't have anybody around with a dog, and so I would tell this story to people about me finding tennis balls, and they would say, "Well, what happened? Was it a ghost? Was it a neighbor? Was it someone playing a prank?" I go, "I don't know. Did they just stop?" And they go, "Your story stinks," and that's why about 5 years ago I sat down with this guy Griff, and he was wanted to be a writer and everything. I said, "I don't know how to write a movie." I said, I have this story, and I have an ending for this movie. Can you help me write it?" And we sat down and wrote it. And then when it was done, I fly by the seat of my pants. I didn't know what to do. And then I looked up and I saw that you were on the Philly film
Home
board,
office, yes.
the film office, right? I was
Right.
like, oh, I know him. He's my neighbor, and so that I said, hey, I came over and I said, what do I do? And in my head, I always have very unrealistic dreams. I'm like, hey, I was thinking, Greg, go and talk to Night Shyamalan for me. and he'll make this movie. It'll be out like in a year. Like, I don't know. Like that's how I thought you would just call him up or something. I don't know. Because I know he
We're a
sits.
good film office, but we're not that influential.
Yeah. I'm like, you're on the board, just do your thing, you know? And yeah, and so I put it up on a place called Inkster, or Ink Tips is what it's called. And they basically, a lot of people just put their movies up and they get chopped around. And I had it up there for 3, 4 years, and nothing happened. I was like, because I didn't have any connections in the movie, you know. And then last year, last January, I got reached out by a company in Bollywood, you know, and they were like, you know, hey, we kind of like this, you know, idea in this movie. And then I talked to them. First I thought it was a scam. You know, when you're American, anyone outside of America, you go,
Right.
I don't know, you know, type of thing. And he was the real deal, and he was a producer. He loved the movie, and he was a director, and he went to make this movie. And it took me about literally 4 or 5 months to feel comfortable with him. Like, I would talk,
Right.
I was like, I thought maybe he wanted me to fund it and send money or whatever. Like, I wasn't really like, I was very cautious. And then I was like, this is the real deal, you know. The company's called Sam Tour Films,
Mhm.
and he raised about the other thing is, the reason I thought it was a scam, he was like, for $20,000 we can make this movie. And I go, I don't think anyone. I mean, I shoot TV commercials
Right.
for the casinos that cost more than that.
Within that.
Yeah, I'm shooting $100,000. I'm like, how do you make it a movie? And he just said everything in India is much cheaper. It's probably why Bollywood puts out whatever it is, like 5 times the amount of movies that Hollywood does, because they just have cheaper actors, cheaper labor, and everything, you know. And so we actually just recently raised money through Seed and Spark, which was a movie fundraising thing. We raised enough money, and he's got the funds. He's already got the locations picked out, and we're in production. So
Wow.
who knew, you know? And I guess my big goal with this is, right. I went to have an American movie and have Bruce Willis and like Shyamalan in it or something. Yeah, like, you know, like I said, my reality is not based in reality, you know. And so I remember thinking, I said, I don't know if I want a movie that was made in India. I said, he goes, well, you know, he says, I get you want the 300 million Americans to see
Right.
it, but, you know, we do have 1.9 billion people over
Right.
here too. And I go, oh, you know, he goes, how many people do you want to see the movie? And then
Mhm.
I thought about movies like Parasite that are made over in foreign countries
Mhm.
that just get dubbed and put over here, or, you know, foreign films, or they get remade. Like Departed was a French movie, and it
Mhm.
got remade here with like big name actors. So my dreams and hopes are that he's going to make such a wonderful movie and such a high
Mhm.
level, high quality movie that either it comes over here and becomes successful as a foreign movie, or a big name producer sees it and says, "Oh my God, what we could do in America," you know. So
Well, it's interesting because, the fact that it is an indie movie, there is a audience for that here in the United States. It's even a category on
yeah,
your HBO or any of your streaming channels. But for many actors, it offers them to find continuous work, even though they're not working in the United States. It's a great way to be involved with the early projects. So you never know. Maybe Cameron Diaz will play a part or something.
and somebody might see and just love the story, you know. And I
Yeah,
actually said to Sam, you know, Sam Tor, he's the director. I said, after the Oscars came out, I
right,
said, just think next year you and I might be on this, you
right.
know,
So
like.
where do you go to shop it? I mean, do you have to, be at certain, I guess, premieres in order to see how people respond to it and that sort of thing? And
You know what? That's all stuff. Again, you might know better than me, you know, because I just take it one step at a one time. I say, okay, you know, here's a story. Maybe I should write an ending. Okay, here's the ending. You know, I don't know how to write a movie. Let me find the guy and make the movie. Then, you know, and I just, you know, who knows how to make a movie, direct it? You know, oh,
right,
this guy, you know. And but you know, I have a lot of confidence in him. He's won some international awards and all. And he
right,
says, he goes, when I'm done, we'll put this in film festivals and stuff like that as
right.
well.
Yeah.
And so he knows what to do with it, you know. Again, I'm just Leonardo da Vinci in this. I just want to create something and see it created, you know. So
So I'm a big listener of Smart List with Jason Bateman and Will Arnett,
yeah, I
and
love those guys.
because they talk about this process, like as you're describing it. There was a guy today who was on one of their episodes, and he's an actor, but he writes in his
Yeah.
time, and that write writing that he was doing was able to be presented to someone who wanted to invest in it as a movie, which was an amazing idea that you're writing in your off time and then acting as your full-time job. So uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity to it. All right. So the main thing I want to just ask you, since I'm interviewing you, is how do I get on the red carpet and,
Yeah.
and get invited to the premiere?
I know. Well, you know what? I told everybody because I had a lot of friends, through Seed and Sparks donate and
Right.
stuff. And if this gets, once this get, I should say, once this gets made and I get a copy, I want
Yeah.
to rent out like one of the, maybe it's a small movie theater or something like that. I will have my own red carpet premiere of this movie because I'm going to be so excited for it.
Well, hopefully they'll want to go out and select some scenes where they could shoot. So I could be actually outside mowing the lawn if they wanted
Yeah, right.
a full
Actor
sale.
credits. Okay, I got you.
Well, Dave, I could talk to you forever, and I'm sure at some point in time we will have the ability to talk even further. So I wanted to maybe begin to bring this down because there's two other questions I have for you.
Sure, sure.
So I wanted to know about what's your next big project that you have
Yep.
planned. I know that it's Epka travel app that
Yeah,
you were talking
Epica. Yeah.
about. That's really of interest to me. I'm in the president of Skull International, which is a tourism organization. So when I saw that, I thought, this is something that certainly
That's
makes sense
right.
for some of
There
our
might
audience.
be some crossover again,
Yeah.
right, between
So
us.
tell us about the app.
Yeah, you know what? I'll give you a 30-second background. Every year with my poker buddies, we
Mhm,
take a trip, 15 guys, and we go down to the Caribbean somewhere,
mhm,
right? A lot of times Dominican or Mexico and things like that. And we play poker the whole time and have a good time, right? Just the guys playing, and I kind of said something like, it'd be great to do this for a living, play
mhm,
poker on vacation,
mhm,
sit, drink, eat, and play poker, and we were saying like maybe this is a club that people want. We call it the Pokerification Club, and then it started from the logistics of it is just too complicated even for 15 guys. When you have 15 people go away, you
mhm,
got sometimes multiple flights. You got to get the transportation to it. You've seen this in either wedding parties or bachelor parties or corporate retreats or
mhm,
just big family events. You try to get more than 8 people together. Do you rent a car? You need to rent 2 cars and all. And then we noticed that the logistics is a pain, not only just for our group, the people who travel, but for the host.
mhm,
And then we said, me and one of the guys who's very entrepreneurial said, man, there should be like an app that allows you to see the itinerary, the host to see the itinerary of everything going on. So
mhm,
the host can now see an organized itinerary and know all the transportation needs of the group, all
mhm,
the food selections, because most of the time when you got like 15 guys, like even if you want to go to a restaurant, you would need transportation to get to the restaurant. So
mhm,
most of the times you have a chef that comes in and then
mhm.
you have to say who wants what and you got to pick up meals for the day and things like that. And then there's like the excursions, like what do you want to do? Oh, let's go on a zip lining thing or ATV tour or whatever it may be. And so Epica is a very simple app that allows the host and the guest and the staff to know what's going on with each travel, each vacation that comes through. It's a kind of a simple idea, but no one's kind of touched upon it. So we've been building it for the last year,
Mhm,
and we're actually in production
mhm.
to have it launched by the end of this year. So that's what Epica is, and that's my new. Again, I'm always creating. I'm Leonardo da Vinci, just trying to create stuff. So that's
Well, I may have even better opportunity to make some introductions and connections with this particular project in the tourism industry. So, as you get closer
we'll
to that, let me know. It'd
we'll
be
talk
great.
offline. Yeah,
I would. I'd love to maybe see how we could build it into one of our programs with Skull and get some feedback from some of our hospitality players, especially the ones who are in the travel industry specific and what
yeah.
thoughts might be. All right. So with that being said, I do now have my last and final question. So we are something to say podcast. So what we always like to do at the end of our podcast is ask those that we're interviewing. So what do you have to say?
Yeah, you know what? It always comes down to creativity for me, right? And I tell everybody, I even tell a lot of the younger designers too. I said, create more than you consume is my philosophy, right? Because a lot of times it's very easy to just consume stuff. 20 years ago used to be called a couch potato, right? If you just sat there watching TV. And now it's like, they call it like doom scrolling if you're just kind of going through Instagram, and there's nothing doing that. But as long as you create more than you consume, I think it's always good to be creating and just always thinking about creating stuff.
Well, I think that's part of why, as we look at the use of technology for some, that it may limit their ability to grow intellectually. They only see
Yeah.
one thing or they see one model and they go with that. Especially now that it's really important that people have a more positive way of looking at things, because doom scrolling tends to take you to the dark side.
Yeah.
But in any case, Dave, I want to thank you for sharing your insights, your passion, all of your creativity and your projects. They're certainly an inspiration to me, but I'm sure for many of those who are going to be in our audience. So thank you so much for joining us. And we want to know everything about when the movie rolls out. So keep
Yeah.
updated on that.
Yeah, we might have to have a follow-up one between the movie and Epica, and who knows what's going on with Magnum Casino stuff. I mean, I got a lot of different things going on. So
Fantastic. Well, Dave, thank you once again. And audience, that's a wrap for this episode of Something to Say podcast. We encourage you to stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with the voices of individuals from diverse backgrounds as they share your passion. So until next time, this is Gregdeshields.
Thank you for tuning in to Something to Say. We trust you found some valuable insights and takeaways that can help you find your passion. Don't miss out on future episodes. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on your preferred platform. We value your feedback and suggestions, so let us know how we can serve you better. Keep the conversation going and stay inspired until we meet again. Take care and happy listening.